question is what is going to happen at the start, because ahead of him are his two main rivals in the World Championship, David Coulthard and Mika Häkkinen. Yes, I know they're a long way behind him at the present moment, but there are still 14 races to go after this one, 13 races to go after this one, and I'm sure they're going to catch up. Now, a lot of people will be rooting for Ferrari all around the world, but a heck of a lot of people will be rooting for McLaren as well. And they've had a rough time in the first 3 races of this year. Engine trouble for Mika Häkkinen in the first 2. He finished second at San Marino. But they are desperately looking for points. They are 29 points behind Ferrari in the Constructors' Championship. And of course, Michael Schumacher, with 30 World Championship points, is 24 points ahead of his nearest McLaren rival, Mika Häkkinen. So this is a crucial race for McLaren, but ahead of the McLarens, of course, are not only Rubens Barrichello, who richly deserves his first World Championship win in Grand Prix racing. He started in 1993, as you just heard Tony Jardine say. But ahead of the two McLarens too are Heinz-Harald Frentzen in his Jordan. And that's a car which is very well suited to this track. The Mugen Honda engine has got the power in the right place, and Heinz-Harald Frentzen has already won 3 Grand Prix this year, 2 of them last year for Jordan. So it is a wide open race.
Should be very exciting. It's great to see Schumacher actually now back on the 3rd row. We'll see if there's any overtaking to be done in Formula 1 now. Sorry, I've had a puff, I've just run a long way. But he's got to get past those 2 McLarens. Coulthard looked very strong in the warm-up. They're all denying that there'll be any difference on the start with these new electronics, because they're saying, well, our car didn't have them anyway, so it doesn't affect us. But I'm pretty sure it does. Some of them. Not all of them, but some of them were using systems to help get the car away. So the track is very green. We've had a lot of rain, as you know. Some other cars racing on the track, some older cars which tend to tear up the Formula 1 rubber with their hard tyres. Formula 3000's running in the wet yesterday, and the drivers were all complaining of lack of grip because the circuit is very, very green, as we call it.
Well, they were here last week, of course, testing. So although it's been mostly wet, but some dry periods in the last couple of days, they had plenty of time last week to work out the best dry settings as well as the best wet settings in the last couple of days. You saw something there that I haven't seen on this trip before. Heat haze, would you believe? And away they go on the installation lap. There are 60 racing laps here at Silverstone.
Because that's the only time you see the green light now on the start these days, is to say, go on to that warm-up lap, formation lap, whatever you like to call it. And usually, of course, here, the start line is in a different place to the finish line. So they start halfway down the pit straight, but the finish of the race is as you come, just finish sweeping out of Woodcote in the original position. And that's what caught Michael Schumacher out yesterday. I was talking to him last night. He thought he'd started a new lap for his final go at qualifying by half or 1 second. But of course the lights are on over the other line, which is about 300 metres down the track. I think he could have carried on, but it certainly cost him a final shot at that pole position, hence he's back in 5th.
Well, Rubens Barrichello in the scarlet Ferrari, leading Heinz-Harald Frentzen in the yellow Jordan around Club Corner, which is just about halfway round the lap. He's gone down the hangar straight in Stowe through the fearsome collection of bends of Beckett's. He's coming up to the left and right at Abbey, which is quite slow for 55 miles an hour on the apex. Then out of the right-hander at Abbey, up to the complex of corners, Bridge, that you see him going, and they take that corner at 150 miles an hour. It is awe-inspiring. Now into the 2 left-handers, Priory and Brooklands, and you can see that the competitors are closing up now. Rubens is slowing down so that he's got them all behind him as much as possible when he stops on the grid, because he and the people at the front, well, none of them for that matter, will be wanting to sit there with the clutch out and the engine running for any longer than they have to. So right down at the grid, right at the back, are Marc Genet and Gaston Mazzacane in the 2 Minardis. They're bringing up the rear of the field again. I remind you that on the 3rd row of the grid, ahead of his more experienced teammate Ralf Schumacher, is Jenson Button in the Williams BMW. He put up a terrific qualifying lap yesterday, and it's put him on the third row of the grid. So through that heat haze drives Rubens Barrichello in front of us to take up his position on the left-hand side of the grid. Frentzen peels across to the right. It's quite a decent run down to Copse Corner compared with some of the tracks. And now they peel off to the right, those who are occupying the right-hand side of the track. It's a staggered formation as ever. You
see it's just cut away with the yellow line by Coulthard's front wheel as their marker, because you're sitting quite deep into the cockpit. You can't really see too clearly very near to the car. So that yellow line outside there of Coulthard's car is to let him know where to park his front wheel. So the sensors underneath his seat are in line with the sensors in the racetrack, the lights.
And when the fifth one goes out, Silverstone will be go! Barrichello leads away well. Frentzen second, and Schumacher sprinting up alongside the two McLarens. But Jenson Button is right behind him. And so it is Barrichello, it is Frentzen, it is the two McLarens.
Yes, but Murray, Michael got squeezed out. Hakkinen put the squeeze on Michael Schumacher, and he actually then dropped back some places. I think Coulthard's the leader of the two McLarens in third and fourth, but as you can clearly see, Barrichello and Frentzen away beautifully. Michael had the best of the starts, but then had to yield. That makes a change.
Yes, so Michael Schumacher is in sixth position, and Barrichello, of course, has got a dry track, a clear track in front of him. The two Minardis are still last, of course, and thankfully, as they go down into club, they're all away.
And Ralf Schumacher just outbraked his brother. Michael tried to move into Stowe, which would be a touch of deja vu from last year, decided to back off, and now Ralf, his brother, outbraked him into Vale, and he slipped yet another place. Look at the pair of them in the background there, and Ralf maintains that position. A disastrous first lap. Ralf running a little bit wide there. Disastrous first lap for Michael Schumacher, but he's coming back at his brother. Barrichello leads into Priory.
And now into Brooklands. You can see there's quite a gap developing now between the first 5 cars and that gaggle of cars for 6th position as Rubens Barrichello leads out at the end of lap 1. It's Barrichello, Frentzen, Coulthard, Hakkinen,
Jenson Button is 5th, Murray, followed by Villeneuve, and then Michael Schumacher has dropped behind his brother in 8th place. So Ralf up to 7th, Verstappen 9th, and Jarno Trulli tops out the top 10.
So Michael Schumacher down in 8th position, and already Jenson Button, who is in that leading 5, has gained 1 place at the expense of Michael Schumacher. He started alongside his hero, could hardly believe his eyes when he saw that it was happening yesterday, and now he is ahead of him. Down they come, and there is Button, and there's a battle developing behind Jenson Button.
Yes, that was Ralf making a move on Villeneuve. I don't know whether he got through. Yes, he did. Ralf Schumacher takes Villeneuve into Stowe, so he moves up into that 6th place.
So already the race is starting to develop into a pattern. 5 up at the front, then there's more, and right down to Mazzacane, who was running last week with Frentzen now, and that is Rubens Barrichello's Ferrari ahead of us, and it's out of Abbey, now up to Bridge, the 150-mile-an-hour right-hander. Barrichello, Frentzen, Priory, the left-hander, and the gap between the two of them at the end of that previous lap was just 0.4 of a second. Barrichello, Frentzen, Coulthard, Hakkinen, Button, Villeneuve. So Jacques Villeneuve in the BAR is in 6th position ahead of Ralf Schumacher and Michael Schumacher, the two brothers. Now, can Michael do anything about the Williams BMW? Because Michael Schumacher is in a much more powerful motor car, but his brother is very determined indeed, and he can't. Villeneuve is ahead of the Ferrari.
Yes, Ralf Schumacher, the fastest lap of the race there by over half a second. So Ralph's got a bit of clear air. He will very quickly be up behind Jenson Button in 5th place. The two Williams absolutely flying in the warm-up this morning, looking very, very well balanced in these dry conditions. Hakkinen appears to be struggling a little bit in the early stages, and now Coulthard slipping back from Frentzen too.
I am amazed that Michael Schumacher is down where he is. He must have some sort of a problem. This is not tactics, it's not strategy.
Now, Michael has just got the bad end of the stick on every move he's tried so far. Flew off the line, got pushed out by Hakkinen, then tried to take Villeneuve, lost out again. On the rebound, Ralf took him, And, well, it's just all gone wrong for Michael Schumacher down there in 8th place.
1.7 seconds covers the first four. Jenson Button is 7/10 of a second behind them, with Ralf Schumacher the fastest on the track. And the Williams BMWs, the two cars there, have surprised us a lot this season. They're continuing to do so here at Silverstone. The brand new BMW engine is doing an absolutely fantastic job, and both of them are in the top 6. Jenson Button 5th. Ralf Schumacher is in 6th position, and it looks to me visually as though Rubens Barrichello in the Ferrari there, as he bursts out of Woodcote, has increased his lead slightly over Heinz Harald Frentzen, who's...
Ralf Schumacher fastest man again. So here's the start look, and watch the second red car look of Michael Schumacher. They touched twice. That's why Schumacher had to get out of the throttle. Hakkinen and Schumacher touched twice. Hakkinen stayed on the gas. Michael had to yield, and then that cost him some time.
Here it is again. Look at there's Schumacher. Hakkinen moves across on him. They touched. I'm just wondering whether it's deranged Schumacher's Ferrari suspension slightly.
Here's a better view. Look now. Oh, they were so... Actually, they didn't quite touch. They just looked like they did from that high shot, but a closer shot, and they just got extremely close. A little bit of one-upmanship going on there, and Mick is saying, no way, buddy, I need these points more than you. You're a long way ahead of us. And Michael really pushed quite heavily onto the grass. Normally, he'd have got away with that, but we all know just how wet the grass is around here.
Lap 4 out of 60, here it is from Heinz Harald Frentzen's point of view. There is Rubens Barrichello sprinting away down to Copse Corner, with the Jordan tucked up behind him. The Ferrari pulling away a little on. Now we're with David Coulthard. Now look at David Coulthard. On the left is Hakkinen. David Coulthard moves across to get behind Heinz Harald Frentzen. We can't see what's happening to Hakkinen, who is just behind us, but that is where Coulthard got his 3rd position, because he started 4th on the grid. So he's had a better start than Mika Hakkinen, and it's still Barrichello at the end of the 4th lap. He led previously by 8/10 of a second. You can see what it is visually. The yellow Jordan is 2nd, and David Coulthard is gaining very slightly on Heinz Harald Frentzen. Hakkinen is not gaining on David Coulthard. Jenson Button and Ralf Schumacher are both 6/10 of a second behind Mika Hakkinen, who is in 4th position. So now look at this, Heinz Harald Frentzen, and here we are. Now look at Jenson Button in the background. Jenson Button there, and Ralf Schumacher goes through and takes Jacques Villeneuve. So Ralf Schumacher in the Williams BMW taking Jacques Villeneuve in the BAR Honda, and he's still ahead of him. Schumacher 6th, Villeneuve 7th, Michael Schumacher in 8th position. Is now 8.8 seconds behind Rubens Barrichello that you're looking at. Frentzen, Coulthard, Hakkinen, Button, Schumacher, and Jenson Button is still that 6/10 of a second behind, and there is Ralf Schumacher in 6th position. So Ferrari leads, Jordan 2nd, and we're with Frentzen now. The 2 McLarens 3rd and 4th, the 2 Williams BMWs 5th and 6th. Villeneuve's BAR is 7th, and Michael Schumacher is 8th.
Yes, Michael appears to be slightly off the pace, but I think he's just in that slipstream position behind Villeneuve, and he's having to basically lap at Villeneuve's pace, which is over 1 second per lap off the pace of the leaders. I don't think it's necessarily because Michael's got a lot more fuel on board. Certainly took off the line like he wasn't quite so heavy, or especially heavy, I should say. So Michael tucked up behind Villeneuve at the moment. Doesn't appear to be able to do anything about it at all. There they are. And look, Verstappen hanging on to Michael Schumacher in the Arrows.
Yeah, the Arrows is going extremely well here. Last year, Tom Walkinshaw's team, Arrows, concentrated on developing this year's car. They hadn't got a big enough budget. Michael Schumacher having a look at Villeneuve, tearing off a strip from his visor. But Jos Verstappen holding on in this new car that's been developed by the Arrows team at Leafield. And this year it's got a Super Tech engine, and it's a very, very quick motor car. Jos Verstappen has been out of Grand Prix racing last year. He's back with a bang.
It's so unusual to see Michael losing out in those first lap battles. We normally expect him to be the one making the moves, but just didn't pay off for him today. And now Ralph's pretty much got in the slipstream of Jenson, and he's lost a little bit of his momentum and inertia. They're all now lapping between 1:29.3 and 1:29.6, that whole leading gaggle, which is why they're so close together.
Going to be very interesting to see what happens with Ralf Schumacher and Jenson Button. They are teammates. The one thing you mustn't do with your teammate is to collide with him. You shouldn't collide with anybody, but certainly not with your teammate. But Ralf Schumacher was not at all happy that for the second time in 4 races this year, Jenson Button out-qualified him here at Silverstone, and Button is ahead of him now, and Heinz-Harald Frentzen has just made the fastest lap of the race, as you see, 1 minute 29.18, and that compares with last year, 1:28.3 by Mika Häkkinen. So Frentzen is starting to close on Rubens Barrichello. Ralf Schumacher is closing on Jenson Button.
Well, there you see the amount that Michael Schumacher was behind. It's the whole length of the Hangar Straight. As the leaders turned into Stowe, Michael was just coming through Church onto the Hangar Straight.
Quick word now about stops and strategy. You heard James Allen. We're probably expecting 2 stops. Now, if you do it mathematically, those 2 stops would be on laps 20 and 40 in this 60-lap race. But as you also heard James say, there's going to be all sorts of different 2 stops. Some people will stop early for their first stop, some will stop very late, and it's going to be difficult to get a coherent picture of the race until much later.
Yes, and the Ferrari team will be now recalculating what to do with Michael Schumacher. This could not have been in their game plan at all, and they're going to wonder how they can at some point widen the window of those stops and find him a bit of clear air so he can close down that 11-second gap he's got to the leaders. James, what can you tell us?
Well, I think he's in big trouble, to be honest, Martin. It's going to be very, very difficult. I also think he did take a knock in that Häkkinen incident. I'm in the Ferrari garage, and I said to them, they looked like they very nearly touched, didn't they? And then one of the Ferrari guys looked at me and said, listen, mate, they did touch. So I think maybe he's carrying something on that car, not quite sure. But either way, we're looking at a long first stint here for sure. The target lap time for a normal 2-stop is about a 1:28.7, and they're a little bit off that. So I think they're carrying a bit more fuel than a standard divided into 3 race. So you're looking for a first stop sometime around 23 to 26 is my guess.
Depends which camera angle you looked at, James. I'm not sure they did touch, and if they did, it was in areas that are not really that vulnerable. The suspension, the carbon fibre suspension, is either absolutely fine or it's broken and the wheels flying around. So I'll be surprised if he's got any kind of mechanical or suspension derangement, and certainly there's nothing hanging off the car at this time. Michael just appears to be now back there in Villeneuve's slipstream, but falling back slightly, now 7/10 behind.
Lap 8 out of 60, we're with Frentzen, who is in second place. You can see Rubens Barrichello ahead, 9/10 of a second. David Coulthard has just made a very quick lap. He's half a second behind us in Frentzen's car. Mika Häkkinen is 8/10 of a second behind him. Jenson Button is just under a second behind Mika Häkkinen. Ralf Schumacher is 1.1 seconds behind Jenson Button, who's just made the fastest lap of the race. So the young Jenson Button is on the move. He's only 4/10 of a second now behind Mika Häkkinen. There's Häkkinen, there is Button, and there's quite a big gap behind Jenson to Ralf Schumacher. Now, completing the top 10, Jacques Villeneuve is 7th, Schumacher is 8th, Verstappen is 9th, and Jarno Trulli is in 10th position. Lap 9, no retirements. There is Häkkinen and Jenson Button. Now, you remember when Jenson spoke to Martin just before the race, he quite coolly said, I'm looking forward to my first British Grand Prix. I can't wait to get into the race. He's got into the race. He stayed ahead of Ralf Schumacher. He has passed Michael Schumacher, the double world champion in the Ferrari, and he's closing on double world champion Mika Häkkinen as you look at Jenson Button now. Barrichello, Frentzen, Coulthard, Häkkinen, Button, and Ralf Schumacher.
Coulthard beginning to press Frentzen once again, and Button's, I mean, the speed he has in the car, I don't think surprised anybody, but this kind of maturity in a race is just, this is probably his 40 or 45th circuit race ever, and here he is mixing it with the best in the world. You're on board with Coulthard going into left field. He takes a slightly tighter line through there, gets on the power nicely, not too much oversteer on the way out as the car accelerates over the start line. That's the finish line. The start line is now, and Cox is ahead 190 miles an hour. So difficult to see where to turn in, and then hold your breath on the exit. There's a little tiny piece of curb before you're in the gravel trap. Into Beckett, see if he has to lift too much. A little bit of lift there, still got quite a lot of fuel on board. Remember, riding the curbs, and a little bit of spray. There's still some water up against those curbs.
lap 10, 1/6 race distance. And still, Rubens Barrichello is staying out in front of Heinz-Harald Frentzen. So look how close it is. You see, this is a real motor race. This is a very different kind of circuit here in Silverstone to the one in Australia, to the one in Brazil, to the one at Imola for the San Marino Grand Prix. Wide open spaces, very, very fast indeed. Flowing corners, and although there have been chicanes put in, as there have at most circuits after the tragic death of Ayrton Senna at Imola in 1994, Silverstone remains a very quick and spectacular circuit, and you can see that David Coulthard, the third car on the left there, is crowding right up behind Heinz-Harald Frentzen's Jordan, trying to get to grips with it and get past to have a go at Rubens Barrichello. But Martin, this track, which looks so wide open and fast, and is indeed that, is still very difficult to pass on.
Well, it is, because obviously the cars swing across the circuit using the ideal line at all times, and the entry speeds to most of these corners are so high. You really need a slow corner onto a long straight with a big break at the end of it to generate some overtaking, but then everybody complains the circuit is slow and boring. But you know, it's thrilling to drive, thrilling to watch, but it's not conducive to a lot of overtaking.
Now, the lucky thing from Michael Schumacher's point of view is that although he is still in 8th position behind Jacques Villeneuve, who is 7th, and therefore out of the points, his main rival from the last 2 years, Mika Häkkinen, that you're looking at, is still only in 4th position on 3 World Championship points. So if they stay where they are, and I don't suppose for a moment they will, Schumacher would still only lose 3 of his World Championship points lead over Mika Häkkinen. As we ride with David Coulthard in 3rd position. Lap 11 out of 60 as across the line goes leader Rubens Barrichello, but Mika Häkkinen, the 4th car, has just made the fastest lap of the race to close up a bit on his teammate David Coulthard. The McLarens are still 3rd and 4th, but Frentzen in the Mugen Honda-powered Jordan is still holding that 2nd place. And Martin, I must say I'm quite surprised at that, because the McLarens behind him have undoubtedly got much more power from their Mercedes-Benz engine, which is also a lot lighter. But Frentzen is holding the pace extremely well.
I don't think there's much between them now, Murray, at the top end, 20 horsepower at the most. It's a question of drivability, and I think the way the aerodynamics are working around this circuit rather than absolute raw power. And Barrichello's car's working well, there's no doubt about that. He's just done a new fastest lap of the race on a 1:28.8, but they're all so close. This is the amazing thing, all designed to different philosophies, same regulations, but different philosophies and all kinds of interesting differences as you look along the cars aerodynamically, weight distribution-wise and whatever, but they are so close in performance. Unfortunately, that's not generating us great overtaking opportunities.
No, but listen to this. I can now tell you something that hasn't been told before this week. I was up at the Shell place at Thornton in Cheshire with Rubens Barrichello last week, and
it's a restart here. Look at, and there'll be a circle coming up, and there is Schumacher and Häkkinen. From this distance, it does look like they touch, but another camera angle down much nearer to the racetrack seemed as if Schumacher was able to keep just moving out of the way whilst not going too hard onto the grass.
Right, well, let's come back to this thing I was telling you about the fuel, because Ferrari may have a bit of a secret weapon. They're using a different kind of fuel composition here, which may give them an economy advantage, which could help them stay out a bit longer, and that could be absolutely crucial to this race and strategy. Meantime, David Coulthard is pushing again. He's still in 3rd position. You still see Barrichello, Frentzen, Coulthard, Häkkinen, and there's only 2.5 seconds covering the top 4.
Yes, new fastest lap for Coulthard on a 1:28.4. They're just edging taking that away now as the fuel load goes down. Remember, 10 kilos of fuel around here, let's say 4 laps worth of fuel is 0.4 of a second in cost per lap, carrying that weight around the circuit. Michael Schumacher is now 16.5 seconds behind the leader, almost as if he's lost a bit of interest back there. He's not really putting any kind of pressure on Villeneuve. We're not seeing one of his storming drives through the field. You're on board with Coulthard, of course, the camera above his head that all the cars have to carry, and once again they're playing with the throttle in left field, trying to get some grip and head down that pit straight. But there's a westerly wind here. At the end of this straight is often the fastest part of the racetrack at 195 miles an hour.
Well, you don't need to be a brain surgeon to work out that with the race as close as this, because you're looking at Ralf Schumacher now, who's in 6th position, just 4 seconds behind the leader. 4 seconds covers the first 6. You don't need to be a brain surgeon to work out that a great deal is going to depend on strategy and when they come in, how long they take and where they rejoin the track in relation to their competitors. As down the straight into Stowe goes Hakkinen, Coulthard coming towards us now, De La Rosa, Johnny Herbert in the Jaguar. They are 17th and 18th. And coming through now, there is Herbert. Behind Herbert is Deniz, then Heidfeld, Genet and Mazzacane. That's down to the 22nd. We still have no retirements. We're on lap 14.
Michael Schumacher then, that's the distance he is behind fellow world champion Jacques Villeneuve. And I think that's about as close as you're going to get. The turbulent air, you damage your front tyres a little bit on turning, the car slides. You have to wait. The guy in front of you is always going to be on the throttle, at least a car length ahead of you, of course. And you just end up taking his momentum somehow. You've got to arrive and nail the guy in front if you can. Otherwise, you end up falling into some kind of... You just get mesmerised, really, and that seems to be where Michael Schumacher's at right now at this stage of the afternoon.
As he follows Jacques Villeneuve in the BAR Honda, the world champion of 1997. You remember that Michael Schumacher and Villeneuve had that contentious coming together at Jerez in 97, which decided the world championship. Well, they're at it again now. Not colliding, I mean, but racing each other very hard indeed. As you can see, Barrichello on the right, Frentzen on the left are doing, and you can see that with all this sunshine that we've had, not only is the track completely dry, but it's getting warmer, of course, and that can make somewhat of a difference. As into the pits comes Alexander Wurz in the Benetton from 21st position. Well down.
Yes, that must be an unscheduled stop. I would have thought so early in the race. Can't imagine they're dreaming of free stopping, although nothing much changed on the car other than a standard looking, put some gas and some new boots on it. So Wurz now over the speed line. He can accelerate. What a tricky little corner at the end of the pit lane here, but you're moving nicely by the time you rejoin the racetrack. And
we certainly haven't had a race as close as this year. Just over 4.1 seconds now separates Ralf Schumacher, who is 6th, and Rubens Barrichello on the left, who is leading the race as they turn the right-hander and up into Woodcote to complete their 15th lap. Now we're getting towards the time when the first of the stops for a 2-stop strategy could happen, round about 5 laps time, if I am right. But the Ferrari mechanics seem quite relaxed there, as Barrichello leading Frentzen by half a second. Frentzen is half a second ahead of Coulthard. Coulthard is 0.8 of a second ahead of Mika Hakkinen. So Hakkinen can't do anything about the 3 in front of him any more than Michael Schumacher, who is 8th, can do anything about Villeneuve before he gets into the points, if he does. 6th position, which is occupied by his brother, Ralph, and Jenson Button is still in 5th position.
Well, we're focused on the people driving the cars, but the men who are going to win this race this afternoon are in the pits, currently studying the back of their eyelids, relaxing, resting, preparing themselves, because it's going to be all about getting their man back out on the track in the fastest possible speed.
Mika Sala out from 18th position in the Sauber. His teammate Pedro Diniz is 17th ahead of him, or was. So Mika Sala rejoins, and The leaders are still that close as they turn out of the left-hander at Brooklands into the double right-hander at Luffield. We're with David Coulthard now with the three-pointed star of Mercedes-Benz on his steering wheel, crossing the line to complete the 16th lap.
It surprised me just how long it took Coulthard to be able to get on the power there. I think the rear tyres, when the track is green, you get more wheel spin. As soon as you get more wheel spin, you get more temperature, higher wear rate, and I think all of them, and maybe it's why their pace is so similar, they're just struggling to get on the throttle in those slower corners. At high speed, you've got more than the weight of the car in downforce, helps you get that traction. It's the low speed corners where, listening to their throttle actions, they're struggling to find some grip.
I'm waiting to hear what Michael Schumacher says at the end of this race. There he is in the Ferrari in 8th position. And news from James Allen.
Yeah, a little bit of concern up on the McLaren pit wall. We've had some discussions going on between Steve Hallam and Mark Slade on the Hakkinen engineering team. I know that Hakkinen had a problem this morning with a pneumatic valve sensor. It was a similar problem to the one he had in Australia, if you remember, the air system relating to the engine. And they were concerned, of course, with that very short amount of time between the warm-up and the race. They didn't have time to change the engine. Hakkinen could have started the race in the spare car, but I'm told he started in his race car, and there have been quite a few discussions going on up there in the last few minutes, so we'll keep an eye on that. But at the moment, Hakkinen's not showing any signs of being slowed by any kind of problem, but they're certainly watching it. Meanwhile, guys, I'm becoming convinced now that people are actually going to stop just once in this race. The lap times we're seeing are very consistent with quite a heavy fuel load, so we need to keep our eyes on this. It's an extraordinary atmosphere down here. I can't remember a more tense atmosphere between the teams. It's real cat and mouse. The first person to move, make a mistake, the others will pounce.
Yeah, you could well be right, James, because the two-stop strategy is going to bring them down into the traffic. Now, who's doing well and who isn't doing so well? Well, obviously, the first 5 are doing well, but particularly Jenson Button, to have improved his position on the grid by a place and to stay with the competition that he's chasing, because he's only 2.6 seconds on lap 18 behind race leader Rubens Barrichello, and he is right up with Mika Hakkinen, who is in 4th position, as you watch Jacques Villeneuve going extremely well in the BAR Honda. Last year that car did not go well. You're looking at Barrichello now, and look at Heinz-Harald Frentzen crowding right up behind the Ferrari. Now, Michael Schumacher is the first man who is doing badly in comparison with what we would have expected down in 8th position. Jos Verstappen is driving a great race for Arrows in 9th position, but now they are right up with each other. Frentzen is with Barrichello, Coulthard is with Frentzen, Hakkinen is with Coulthard, Jenson Button is not so very far behind Mika Hakkinen. So it is Ferrari leading, Jordan 2nd, McLaren's 3rd and 4th, Williams 5th and 6th, with Button and Schumacher both in the points on lap 18 out of lap 60. Now watch Heinz-Harald Frentzen, watch his fingers. He changes gears by just squeezing paddles underneath the left and right side of the steering wheel, which you don't need me to tell you is not a normal one. It's not round, it's got buttons all over it, because a lot of the control functions these days operated by the driver are done through the steering wheel, and the steering wheel itself can cost a minimum of £20,000 with all the electronic stuff that is on it. So down the hanger straight into Stowe Corner, and he's doing about 190 miles an hour. Barrichello, Frentzen, Coulthard, Hakkinen, Button and Ralf Schumacher in 6th position. This is not a good race for Benetton again. Fisichella came in from 15th position. Look at the nose of his car. I don't know what's happened. He must have hit something.
He's caught the back end of somebody's car, I'd imagine, and just rubbed the carbon fibre off the end of that. And he's racing around to the back with Mika Sala. They're squabbling over last place at the moment. There's Michael Schumacher, Rubens Barrichello. 0.4 of a second ahead last time around. And it's the Williams at the back of that pack looking most menacing. I think Barrichello's just hanging on to it. He hasn't got anything left to be able to pull away from these guys. And the rest of them are really just struggling along in the slipstream, biding their time. Where, as I say that, Barrichello does a new fastest lap of the race. But again, we're talking just a few tenths in it, a few hundredths in fact.
Yeah, and 3.8 seconds covers the first to sixth now, because Ralf Schumacher has closed up, and Rubens must have been listening to us, because he's just done the fastest lap of the race to try to increase the gap. 1 minute 28.4. And that's only 1/10 of a second slower than Mika Häkkinen's fastest lap last year, so that's an average around this Silverstone circuit of 3.2 miles of some 113 miles an hour. And bear in mind that they slow down for some of the corners to about 55 miles an hour. 190 miles an hour down the Hangar straightaway with Frentzen coming out of club, accelerating slightly uphill towards Abbey, the left-hander. This is where you slow from 175 down to 70. Take the apex, right-hander out, accelerate hard, up towards Bridge corner.
That's Verstappen, isn't it? Verstappen in 9th place, dropping back, was in 9th place, now down amongst the Minardis, which means he must be 18th or 19th. So Verstappen, after a fine run, now out of the race, unfortunately.
Lap 20 out of 60, 1/3 distance. The leaders are the same. There is Barrichello, but Jos Verstappen, who was in a fine 9th place, has hit some sort of a problem with the arrows. He's slowed down, he's been caught and passed, and I suspect he is out of the race. Fisichella has come in the Benetton for a pit stop. There is Verstappen touring in. Fisichella clearly having just hit something with the front of the Benetton, because the nose was slightly deranged, and it's a very bad race for the Benetton team, because Fisichella and Wurz are now right at the back, and Heinz-Harald Frentzen speeds up again with his fastest lap of the afternoon. But it's very static at the front, although it's very close, with only 3.2 seconds covering the first 5. Look at them. There is Frentzen, Coulthard, Häkkinen, and Jenson Button in 5th. I keep on marvelling about Jenson Button, but he's driving a great race.
It's absolutely amazing how he can just stay up there with this pace with so little experience. James, what can you tell us?
Here's one for you, Martin. There's a board going out just in a moment for Mika Häkkinen the next time he comes through, and it says Mixture 3. P4, laps 21, Mixture 3. I wonder whether they're trying to plot something here. Get him to run the thing a little bit lean, perhaps save a little fuel. Are they some sort of cunning fuel strategy, do you think?
I don't think it's particularly cunning fuel strategy. They obviously want to stretch out. Maybe he's got enough fuel on board that'll do a two-stopper just about sensibly, or with a little bit of effort, stretch to make a sensible one. And I think the team started the race with that kind of idea. Mika Häkkinen slipping back slightly from Coulthard now, and not a great deal. But we're watching a game of chess here. We saw a bit of tag wrestling off the start line when Michael Schumacher got double shuffled out of the way. But right now, we're simply watching some chess. It's going to shake out when they come in for their pit stops. And obviously, the teams are just fine-tuning what they've got to do to try to maximise, because there's nothing between the drivers or the cars. And Villeneuve getting a bit out of shape there. Some kind of smoke coming out of the back of the car. Whether it was the car bottoming out, I don't know. We'll have a look in a minute. But Villeneuve having a good scrap with Michael Schumacher. They're now 22 seconds off the pace.
And that is Jos Verstappen. We saw him slow down. He's now in the pits. It's a long stop. He's got his visor up, and you can tell from the way the mechanics are standing around the car that he probably won't be going any further. Gaston Mazzacane in the Minardi in the pits, and now out of it. So we've had quite a few pit stops, but they are all tail enders. Mazzacane, Fisichella, Salo, Wurz and Verstappen have all been in. Nobody who is higher than 17th has yet been in, and we're now on lap 22, on lap 23 now, because Barrichello goes through, as you see, 0.6 of a second ahead of Frentzen, so he's eking out his lead, and Mika Häkkinen has just made the fastest lap of the race, faster than his own fastest lap last year, as Verstappen retires, and that is the first retirement on lap 23.
well, fuel 3, maybe he was running fuel 2 before or something, James, because he's now gone something like 0.7 of a second faster with, I can't believe it's the fuel mixture, for sure it'd be Mika getting his head down, I would have thought, probably on the lap before. You always lose a little bit of time while you're listening to a message, understanding a message, making the adjustment in the cockpit. You can't help it. You lose a little bit of momentum, and now all of a sudden Mika Häkkinen appears to be very much on the attack.
Well, as you watch Häkkinen, I just wanted to say something else about Jenson Button. I said yesterday during qualifying that Sir Frank Williams, who of course is the boss of the Williams team, is getting near decision time about the year 2001 and who's going to be his second driver to Ralf Schumacher, because Juan Pablo Montoya, the Colombian who is in American kart racing as champion this year, is on the Williams books and was expected to join them next year. But Jenson Button has been going so well that there's now got to be some doubt about it. If he keeps going on the way he's going now, because he's holding that 5th position superbly, Frank Williams' decision is going to be even harder to make. I wouldn't like to have to make it.
Well, Frank Williams made an incredibly brave decision to put Jenson Button in the car because of his lack of track experience. I think it would be an even braver decision to turf him out now after certainly what we've seen in the first few races. But I reiterate, there's a lot of hurdles for Jenson to clear yet this season. The wet races, the street circuits or whatever. But so far, it's just been astonishing.
You saw Villeneuve and Michael Schumacher there. Michael Schumacher is now 23 seconds behind Rubens Barrichello, with no chance of winning this race unless something dramatic happens to no less than 7 people ahead of him. There's Johnny Herbert, 12th. Pedro Diniz, 13th, behind Pedro Diniz, Heinfeld. Into the pits comes Jean Alesi from 15th position. De La Rosa is in the pits. Marc Genet is in the pits. There's De La Rosa coming in, and the rest through.
Presumably it's vitamin C they put in that orange arrows, is it?
Yeah. Lap 24. Lap 24, Rubens Barrichello leads by 0.6 of a second from Heinz-Harald Frentzen as the Minardi of Marc Genet burns rubber out of the pit lane. He can really hit it there because there's no way he's going to get to 70 miles an hour plus before that white line. And he's coming out. Now, this is going to be pretty significant as Heinz-Harald Frentzen in second position. Now, well down because Coulthard's gone through, Häkkinen's gone through. Now, what is Frentzen's time going to be? This is going to be a crucial thing. And this is on lap 25.
Williams in the pits too. Ralf Schumacher is in the pits. This is looking strong for McLaren. Ralf Schumacher having to pit too, and a problem with the right rear for Ralf Schumacher's pit stop. And he's away now, but that cost an awful lot of time. Fortunately for him, the players behind him, which was Jacques Villeneuve, was some 13 seconds adrift. So I don't think it'll cost Ralf a position, but it sure hasn't helped.
Now, can David Coulthard, now that he's got rid of Heinz-Harald Frentzen, albeit temporarily, put on a real spurt and close the gap between himself and Rubens Barrichello? There is the race leader on lap 25 out of 60. Coulthard second, Häkkinen third, up into 4th place comes Jenson Button, and Jenson Button has just done the fastest first sector of the race. This lap is broken up for timing purposes, like all of them, into 3 individual sectors, and not only has Button gone quicker than anybody in the first sector, he's gone quicker than he has been before in the second sector. There he is, you see. There's Jenson Button, the 4th car there, and look at the gap between him and
I think he's pitting, Murray. The information is Button is pitting this time. There's the white speed limiter line on the pit lane, but Jenson must be careful not to overspeed. I can see him coming past the commentary box now. Yes.
The fuel flap open. I don't know if James is down there. If you are, interrupt me, James. No, he's not. So, Jenson Button in now. Frentzen's time took 7.2 seconds. And remember, every second gives you 4 laps of fuel. Jenson sitting quite calmly there. Now he's taken on a lot of fuel there. Does that mean to say that, well, he may be doing a very strange strategy?
He was a little bit slow away after the refueler came out, but I think with Ralf Schumacher's apparent hit, did Ralf pass him there or not?
Yeah,
I saw a white car go past.
Was
it Ralf? So hopefully Jenson hasn't lost position there. We'll have to wait until we catch them going down Hanger Straight or something. But this is the battle for the lead now. Coulthard having Frentzen got in the pits, Coulthard got some clear air, and look, immediately just zapped straight up to the back of Barrichello. And if you ever need proof that the aerodynamics of these cars are affecting their overtaking performance, I think there it is. It's clear to see.
Well, this is Rubens Barrichello's 115th Grand Prix.
Ralph's in front. Sorry to interrupt, Murray, but Ralph did get through. So whatever that problem is on the right rear wheel cost him nothing. Jensen a little bit slow away, I think, after they lifted the lollipop. That gave him that 10.3-second stop, and it slotted him in behind his teammate. That's a pity. Well,
it's all experience for Jensen Button, and he is still very much in the points in 5th position. As over the line into lap 27 now. Barrichello, as I was saying, this is his 116th Grand Prix. He's led before. He led for Stewart at Brazil last year. He had a wonderful second place at Monaco. He's never won a race, but he's also led for Jordan, his previous team, not for very long, admittedly, in the Belgian Grand Prix after he took pole position. But Rubens Barrichello has had pole position for all the 3 teams he has driven for. He's led for all the 3 teams he has driven for. He hasn't won for any of them. Is this going to be the day? He's leading now by half a second from Coulthard, as into the pits comes Eddie Irvine from 11th position and is passed by his teammate Jaguar Johnny Herbert, who goes up into 11th place.
Yeah, it's a sad weekend again, really, for the performance of the Jaguar team. Really, quite a long way, about a second a lap off the pace. So they're going to go away from here very disappointed, even if there's an alarming fallout of cars ahead of them and they scratch a point. Their performance will be bothering them, and a lot.
Now, let's recap. You're looking at the first 3. Obviously, none of them have stopped yet. Barrichello, Coulthard and Hakkinen, Ferrari, McLaren. There were 6 together. Of those 6, Heinz-Harald Frentzen in the Jordan, who was 2nd, has stopped. Jensen Button, who was 5th, has stopped. Ralf Schumacher, who was 6th, has stopped. So we're going to see shortly whether the different strategies that these 2 lots of 3 drivers are running is going to make a difference. And look at the speed there. Michael Schumacher is now up into 5th position as a result of those stops, but he has yet to come in. Jacques Villeneuve is in 4th place, but he has yet to come in. Of the ones who have stopped, Heinz-Harald Frentzen is still in the points. He's 6th position, ahead of Ralf Schumacher, 7th, who's passed Jensen Button after their pit stops. Button is in 8th position. Jarno Trulli is 9th. Ricardo Zonta has just made the fastest lap of the race, the Brazilian in the BAR. He's in 10th position.
Yes, can't explain the Zonta lap. Johnny Herbert makes his first stop. It's really either they're going to stretch a very long second stint here, or he's on a 2-stopper. Either which way, it seems to be somewhere about in the middle. But you saw a quick shot back there of Michael Schumacher with his head down, but he's still only, he can't get any closer than half a second to Jacques Villeneuve. They're currently running 4th and 5th because of the pit stops.
Still only 1 retirement, and we're on lap 28, almost at half distance, as James Allen gives us more news.
Here's a scenario for you guys. Michael Schumacher's 22 seconds behind the 2 McLarens. If they pit and rejoin, they will rejoin behind him on the track, which of course will allow Rubens the breathing space to put a few quick laps in, make his stop and win this race quite comfortably. Now I just wonder whether that's what we're heading for here. I know McLaren are getting ready to make a pit stop. I think Ferrari aren't a million miles away either. But Hakkinen's been eking out this fuel. That's why he's got the hammer down. He's trying to get the gap between himself and Schumacher as wide open as possible.
Yes, thanks, James. We've seen De La Rosa stopped, I believe, in the pit lane. In fact, he's gone off into the old pit entrance, thank goodness, because a car stuck in the pit lane itself can sometimes mean the safety car, but that is the old pit lane entrance, thank goodness. He had the sense to turn down there, so that will not interrupt the race. Zonta, having set the fastest lap of the race, has now pitted as well, but that's both arrows out of the race. The only 2 to retire so far. Shame for them because of their performance so far through the weekend, but you're looking at the top 3.
Yeah, and it looks to me as though they're both on a they're all on a one-stop strategy. We're on lap 29 now out of 60, and you can see how close it is. The mechanics of Ferrari and McLaren in the end analysis are going to decide the winner of the British Grand Prix if things go on the way they are now. Zonta, the fastest man on the track so far, accelerates out of the pits as Johnny Herbert, 17th, followed by Marc Genet, Nick Heidfeld go through.
Well, what's critical here, if we've seen already that Frentzen and Ralf Schumacher, Jenson Button have pitted earlier than the others. If they manage to stretch it out so they all stop once this afternoon, the laps that are going on now are absolutely critical. They're not running together. They're some 25 seconds apart because some have stopped and some have not. But how will it shake out once they've made their pit stops? And I noticed that the leaders are in the 27.9, so is Jenson Button. So if they can stretch, they're not gaining. And these three at the front have not gained as much as you'd normally expect by having these few laps on the lighter fuel load. So it's going to, when it all shakes out, they're going to come back out pretty much together.
And we are on the half distance, lap 30 out of 60 now, with nothing in it between the leading Ferrari and the two McLarens. We're with the second McLaren now, second place McLaren of David Coulthard, last year's winner, of course, and David Coulthard driving his best, his brilliant best, his 7th equal in the World Championship at the present moment. Just a point, 2 points behind his teammate Mika Häkkinen. And Mika Häkkinen, of course, is 24 points behind Michael Schumacher, who is in the points now. He's in 5th position ahead of Heinz-Harald Frentzen. But, as I always say, it's a bit of a false dawn because Michael Schumacher has not stopped. Frentzen has, Ralf Schumacher has, Jenson Button has, and as Martin has explained, the pit stops that are coming up are going to be absolutely crucial. It's going to be very, very close indeed.
Yes, all three of them did a 28, 1 minute 28.1. We'll wait a few seconds. Villeneuve and Schumacher still a little bit slower than that, although they're currently running 4th and 5th. Then I'm really keen to see Frentzen, Ralf Schumacher and Jenson Button's lap times as they come over the line. They're not together, I'll remind you, but they are still very much racing. This is the game of chess I was telling you about. 28.1 for Michael this time around. Frentzen 28.3.
And Ralph, that's within a tenth, the same as
yes, 28.1, 28.3. So they're all lapping at the same.
Yeah, they're lapping.
Look, Coulthard has passed the Ferrari. Yeah. Coulthard has passed Barrichello. He takes the lead of this race. Haven't seen it on the TV, but maybe Barrichello made a mistake somewhere. We're going to have a replay shortly. Stay tuned. We're going to see that very, very shortly. But David Coulthard, for the 2nd consecutive year, leads the British Grand Prix.
Now, does that mean that Barrichello's got a problem? Because Coulthard, as he did before, is streaking away. Here is the replay now. Let's look what happens. Barrichello leading.
It's into Stowe. Look, Coulthard's going to go down the outside. Coulthard takes a brave run right down the outside. Barrichello defends his line, then has to reduce his speed some, and Coulthard just saying, I'm coming through. Now's the moment.
And as a result of that, Barrichello loses momentum and Mika Häkkinen closes up on him. That's a replay. And so now David Coulthard again, he's made the fastest lap of the race. He's broken clear of Barrichello, who seems to have been holding him up, therefore. And into the pits comes Mika Häkkinen from 3rd position. This is going to give David Coulthard the chance to extend his lead because he will be making a terrific charge on this lap. Now, 11.3 seconds for Mika Häkkinen. Now, that's a second longer than Jenson Button took. James Allen.
Completely consistent with the one-stopper. This is absolutely fascinating. And it was a critical move by Coulthard. If he hadn't got past Barrichello, he might have had the danger.
James, the Williams BMWs have gone through, and it looks to me as though Mika Häkkinen's lost track position.
And look at this, Coulthard's got a back marker on this lap. He does not need this. He must clear this Minardi at the earliest opportunity. Go for it, David, just nail him. You've got to get through. This lap is crucial because you're going to end up, like your teammate, behind those two Williams if you're not careful. You need 2 or 3 more laps if you've got the fuel to pull out 3-4 seconds. Otherwise, the Williams are going to be leading this race.
Yeah, that was incredible. The 2 Williams of Ralf Schumacher and Jenson Button have gone ahead of Mika Häkkinen as a result of their different pit stop strategies. Now, as Marty says, there is Ralf Schumacher, there is Jenson Button, there is Mika Häkkinen, and the McLaren has lost 2 places on the track. Lap 33, 60-lap race.
Well, fortunately for Coulthard, he was still the fastest man on the track despite having to go offline to pass the Minardi there. So didn't cost Coulthard too much time. He still needs another couple of laps of low 1 minute 27s, and he may just come out in front. It's going to be touch and go.
But significantly, Heinz-Harald Frentzen is still there, and he's ahead of Ralf Schumacher and Jenson Button. So Brittain is in 4th position now. Michael Schumacher moves up into 4th place behind Jacques Villeneuve, who is 3rd. David Coulthard leads the race. Rubens Barrichello is in 2nd place. We're at an absolutely magical time of the British Grand Prix at Silverstone, and this is the man who's got to increase the gap between himself and Rubens Barrichello, and his pit mechanics are ready to bring him in. Up to Bridge, the right-hander, 150 miles an hour. David will, of course, know he's coming in on this lap. Rubens Barrichello will retake the lead. Or will he?
No, he won't. He will not. I think Coulthard is tussling. In my view, Coulthard is tussling with these two guys here in the Williams, and that's what he's up against. Got to be some kind of stunning stop, but he needs enough fuel to do the
Just
final.
a minute, drama. There, in comes David Coulthard, the leader, James.
This is going to have to be very, very good by McLaren, because he's got 25 seconds over Michael Schumacher. In other words, if he doesn't get back out on the track in front of Schumacher, he could have blown the race relative to Rubens Barrichello. It's going to be very, very tight, within a second or two possibly. Nice job by the McLaren boys.
10.2 seconds, exactly the same, within a 10th as Jenson Button. He accelerates out, and there goes Schumacher. Look, he's going to get ahead.
It's Frentzen is the key one, though. Frenzen's the key one.
Frenzen's done it as well. There comes David Coulthard, and Frentzen chops across the pit exit. And so David Coulthard, like Mika Häkkinen, has lost track position on his pit stop.
No, not quite, Murray. I don't see it that way. It's Frentzen who will, of course. That Barrichello, no, Barrichello's gone through in front of Frentzen. Sorry, you're correct. You're absolutely correct. So I thought that was Schumacher coming down the pit straight. It was Barrichello. So now Coulthard really has rejoined back in 3rd place.
Yep, lap 34. Rubens Barrichello back in the lead as Jacques Villeneuve, who comes in from 5th position, sweeps into the pit lane and stops at his garage. But the Ferrari is back in the lead, and there is Heinz-Harald Frentzen behind, and David Coulthard. So you're looking at a restatement of the positions at the beginning of the race. Rubens Barrichello is leading, Heinz-Harald Frentzen is in 2nd position, and David Coulthard is 3rd.
Right, it's clear to me now, having seen that. That is Michael Schumacher. Of course, he hasn't yet stopped. He was, as James pointed out, just about a pit stop behind the race leaders. And we haven't seen Barrichello yet. Barrichello's down the road doing 1 minute 27.4s. It is Frentzen we can see behind. Michael Schumacher is in 2nd place, but he has yet to stop.
So, and this is lap 35. Fuel strategies very different indeed. Button, there is Button ahead of Mika Häkkinen, who is 7th and out of the points, but of course he has stopped, and Michael Schumacher, who is ahead of him and in the points, has not. So Häkkinen is 7th, Button is in the points after his stop. Ahead of him is Ralf Schumacher, 5th after his stop. David Coulthard, 4th after his stop. Frentzen the same, 3rd after his stop. So Michael Schumacher will be coming in, and then we will have Barrichello, Frentzen, Coulthard, Ralf Schumacher, Button, Häkkinen, and Jenson Button ahead of the double world champion, and his teammate Ralf Schumacher ahead of him.
What Michael's doing now is some pretty impressive lap times. He's got to leapfrog Jacques Villeneuve, the guy's been holding him up all through the race. So now, and that's Barrichello spun, and Frentzen goes through. The leader spun, Frentzen takes the lead, and surely Coulthard and Häkkinen, Coulthard and the two Williams have got a chance to come through there too. Where is the McLaren?
And he's on wet tyres, and he comes into the pit lane straight away. Rubens Barrichello comes in for his 2nd stop. The Ferrari mechanics are taken by surprise. Rubens Barrichello spun. Now, does he think he's damaged the bottom of the car, James?
I can't see any damage. They certainly weren't expecting him. This was unscheduled. The mechanics have just scrambled. And just to put this into context for you folks, what was happening here was Ferrari's entire strategy was based around Rubens Barrichello winning this race. He's not stalled it, the engine's still running. Now he's got a problem with the gear selection, and they're trying to just reach into the cockpit. He's blown it, guys. He had the race in his lap. Ross Brawn was at his disposal. Michael Schumacher was at his disposal to win this race for Ferrari, and he has blown it.
Well, let's wait and see. He may have had a technical problem that sent him off the racetrack, because it's unusual to recover from a spin and then drive straight into the pit lane with apparently a healthy car. So he may well have had some kind of gear selection problem that pitched him off the road. So now Michael Schumacher is going to lead the race because he has not yet stopped. But the real leader is still Frentzen, followed by Coulthard. And the net gainers in all of this pit stop stuff was Ralf Schumacher, leapfrog Jenson Button, and Mika Häkkinen fell behind the Pirelli. Here we go.
Here's a replay. Now he loses the back of it there. I think there's a mechanical problem, because I noticed that when Barrichello came in and he was talking to the mechanics, he was obviously very agitated, unlike him normally, as he goes through the very wet, soggy grass, and he seemed to be saying, "It wasn't my fault, fellas, something happened at the back." Now he very clearly spun off, rejoins the track. Frentzen goes through and takes the lead, and that is the position at the present moment with Frentzen effectively takes the lead. Michael Schumacher is leading the race.
That's a very, very strange spin there for Rubens Barrichello. Look, got the throttle absolutely buried immediately. I think that was actually a Minardi going through the picture, but splashes across the grass and immediately takes to the pit lane as if he had some kind of throttle or gear shift situation. Michael, a new fastest lap of the race, he certainly will now be leapfrogging Villeneuve. James, what can you tell us?
Well, I owe a hearty apology to Rubens Barrichello. Sorry, Rubens, you didn't blow it. It was a hydraulic pressure dropping on the car throughout that last lap before he spun. That's why he spun. He dived into the pit lane. There's nothing that can be done. He's parked the car. A great tragedy, because what was happening here was the whole thing was for Rubens' benefit today. Even Michael Schumacher was playing for him.
Yeah, you couldn't see him, James, the way we could on our monitors, and he was obviously very concerned indeed. We're watching now Johnny Herbert chasing Pedro Diniz. Johnny Herbert in the Jaguar chasing Pedro Diniz in the Sauber, and he is in 13th position. And so Johnny Herbert is 14th. But just to go back to the front of the race, Michael Schumacher, that's the fluid from the bottom of Barrichello's Ferrari. Michael Schumacher is leading the race by 4 seconds from Heinz-Harald Frentzen, but Schumacher, as we have repeatedly pointed out, has yet to stop, and Frentzen is effectively leading the race from David Coulthard and Ralf Schumacher third, Jenson Button in 4th position, Mika Häkkinen in 5th place, Jarno Trulli in 6th position, as Ricardo Zonta spins out of the race. He was in 11th place, and his BAR Honda race is finished.
Well, he's in a tricky position there, but I don't see any need. They should be able to tow him out under double waved yellows there, and that's truly in for a stop from 7th place, his first stop of the afternoon. Now, I'm absolutely sure of one thing: Michael Schumacher has not got a big enough fuel tank to drive this entire Grand Prix distance. What he is doing is lapping about a second a lap faster than the rest of the field. Remember, he was about 23 seconds behind the leading pack, and there's about 23 laps to go, so this kind of pace might just bring Michael into contention towards the end of the race, remembering of course now he's getting on quite low fuel, and that explains why in the early part of the race he looked lackluster and unable to get anywhere near the back of Jacques Villeneuve.
Yeah, an incredibly late first stop, because he's on lap 38 at the present moment. So he must have had his tank absolutely brim full, which explains why he's going now. And he comes into the pit lane, Michael Schumacher, and I'm watching for Heinz-Harald Frentzen. I can see Frentzen. He's coming through, James.
Thank you, Murray. He's going to come and pit stop. He's going to rejoin in around about 6th or possibly 7th place. He won't get in front of Häkkinen. He'll be in front of Trulli in 7th place. A bad day for Michael Schumacher at the office, really. Maybe he'll get a point, who knows. But I think, guys, you want to keep an eye on Frentzen and the 2 Williamses, because I'm pretty sure they're going to have to stop again. I'm not sure they really are the factor here. I think this is McLaren's day. I think Schumacher's still in the points, actually, because Jarno Trulli has not gone through yet, and I still don't see him, and I reckon that Michael Schumacher, yes, there's Trulli, so Michael Schumacher rejoins the race in the points. Now, he's on 1 World Championship point at the present moment, and his chief rival in the championship, Mika Häkkinen, we expect, is only in 5th position at the present moment, so there's only 1 point difference to Häkkinen's advantage if they stay where they are now. We're on lap 39. These are the positions. Heinz-Harald Frentzen is leading this race from David Coulthard by about 1.5 seconds. Then Ralf Schumacher is 3rd, Jenson Button is 4th, Mika Häkkinen is 5th, Michael Schumacher is 6th.
Well, Heinz-Harald Frentzen won a couple of races last year. He won in France and he won in Italy for Jordan, having already won one race for Williams in the 2 years that he was with the team. He's on his way to a 4th World Championship win at the moment, but there is still 1/3 of the race to run as you watch the BAR Honda being removed. And you now look at Heinz-Harald Frentzen, the new father of daughter Leah, just a couple of weeks old. David Coulthard there in 2nd position. There is Ralf Schumacher, Jenson Button in 4th position, Mika Häkkinen in 5th position. Michael Schumacher is 6th and in the points as a result of getting past Jacques Villeneuve. Fisichella is up to 8th position, but now comes into the pits as a result of which there's Fisichella, as a result of which Jarno Trulli goes up to 8th position. By the way, both Jaguars are still running. Eddie Irvine is 10th, Johnny Herbert is in 13th position. We've only had 3 retirements. Jos Verstappen very early in the race. Pedro de la Rosa, his Arrows teammate, bad luck for the Arrows team. Both their drivers out quite early in the race. Rubens Barrichello, of course, retired from the lead of the British Grand Prix as a result of that hydraulics problem, not his fault. And we're on lap 40 now. And there's a long way to go in this race. 1/3 of it, David Coulthard, less than 2 seconds behind the car that you're looking at now. Heinz-Harald Frentzen, Jordan Mugen Honda. Lap 41, 19 to go at Silverstone. The weather is still perfect, and as a result of Rubens Barrichello's retirement, you're looking now at the first 2. Heinz-Harald Frentzen leading a Grand Prix again. There's his boss, Eddie Jordan. Frentzen's already won 3 races. This could be his 4th and his 3rd for Jordan. He's 1.7 seconds ahead of David Coulthard and lapping faster than the McLaren. Ralf Schumacher and Jenson Button in the Williams BMWs are 3rd and 4th ahead of Mika Häkkinen, who is not making any impression on them. And importantly for him, Michael Schumacher is in the points, 6th position.
But the story is, will Heinz-Harald Frentzen have to, as Janae is at the moment in the Minardi, will Frentzen have to stop again? We don't know. We know the McLarens can go to the end. We're sure of that. We're sure the 2 Williams can go to the end that are currently running 3rd and 4th. Häkkinen we know can. Michael Schumacher absolutely for certain. He was the last man to stop. So we're going to play in Zonta spin any moment now. But this is the question. Does Frentzen have to stop again? And this is Zonta losing his car in the complex, buries the throttle but can't stop it from going into the gravel trap, and they had to bring JCB out to drag that stricken BAR out of the way.
And I have to say, sadly, Martin, that Ricardo Zonta has not lived up to my expectations since he became a Grand Prix driver as the European Formula 3000 champion. Admittedly, he had that crash in Brazil last year, but he just has never really looked like being on it.
No, he's certainly not shone in the way that you would have expected, but Frentzen's certainly put a spurt on, down in the low 27s now, 0.8 of a second faster than Coulthard on that run. Now the leading group are getting amongst the back markers. That's Jenson Button coming up to lap the Minardi, and Häkkinen really just been struggling all afternoon, hasn't he?
Yes, he
hanging on to the back of a pack.
Yes. It is. Here's Frentzen's...
Truly stopped very late, so we know for sure. Surely that must be for Frentzen, and here he comes. Frentzen does have to stop again.
So David Coulthard goes through and takes the lead. And where is Ralf Schumacher? Ralf Schumacher goes through into 2nd position. Jenson Button goes through into 3rd position. Button on lap 43, having made his stop, is in a podium position for the first time as in his short Grand Prix career.
And look, Schumacher too, Michael Schumacher coming through. Frentzen is going to go from 1st to 6th.
Yeah, Michael Schumacher is really laughing as a result of the strategy that they decided to run, because he was down in 8th position for lap after lap. Now he's on 2 World Championship points with Mika Häkkinen just ahead of him in 3rd position. 4th position, I'm sorry.
There's Ralf Schumacher, currently running 2nd. And really, that strategy of Jordan's has blown it for them today. That's turned out to be completely wrong. They weren't flexible enough. They weren't able to move it to a shorter first stint of a one-stopper like some of the teams have done, or indeed even start the race fully intending to do a long first stint. And that's cost Jordan extremely dearly. Häkkinen is coming through the back markers, but still behind Jenson Button in what will shake out to be 3rd place, a podium position. Once they pass the line again and all the computers shuffle around, Jenson Button in a current podium position.
And I am wondering who it is that BMW have got working for them at Munich. This, after all, is their first year back in Formula One after leaving it in 1983 when Nelson Piquet was the world champion for Brabham using a BMW turbo engine. And they've started off with a clean sheet of paper. They haven't used anybody else's technology. And there were people saying that the BMW was heavy, engine was heavy and underpowered. Well, if that's a heavy, underpowered engine, I'm sure that half the pit lane would be more than happy to get their hands on it, because they are now in 2nd and 3rd places. There is Schumacher, there is Jenson Button coming through to lap the Prost ahead of him and staying ahead of world champion 2 times Mika Häkkinen.
Yes, David Coulthard's got a 7-second lead now, and coming up, they're all coming through the back marker, so I think it'll yo-yo a little bit. But Coulthard, he's often said, I love it when I'm out in front. That's where I feel my most confident, my most comfortable. But I'm sure in the back of his mind, the reliability issues he's had with the McLaren, as Jenson Button laps the Prost, Coulthard's going to be thinking, will this go to the end today when I need it most to win the Grand Prix of Great Britain back-to-back for a British driver? Would be some kind of wonderful feeling.
Well, I didn't expect to see this, I'll be quite honest. 2 British drivers in the top 3 at this stage of the race. Lap 44 out of 60, and I certainly didn't expect one of them to be absolute newcomer. Jenson Button, first time at Silverstone in a Grand Prix. Lap 45 then, here are the gaps. David Coulthard 7 seconds ahead of Ralf Schumacher and lapping about the same. Jenson Button is 9 seconds behind Coulthard. Mika Häkkinen is 11 seconds behind Coulthard. Michael Schumacher is 17 seconds behind, but lapping 0.8 of a second faster than Mika Häkkinen. I wonder if Mika has some sort of a problem. He just has not shone in this race at all.
Well, I think we're finally seeing Michael Schumacher on some kind of mission. He's just 6.4 seconds behind Mika Häkkinen now, who's 1.6 behind Jenson Button. That mid-race sprint when Michael Schumacher got some clear air and started pumping in the 1:26s has certainly all of a sudden elevated him in with some chance of getting on to the leading pack.
Lap 45. Now, if Michael Schumacher can keep up this searing pace, he's going to be with Mika Häkkinen in about 8 laps' time, round about lap 52, if my mathematics are correct, which they seldom are. But either way, towards the end of the race, we should be seeing Michael Schumacher up alongside or just behind Mika Häkkinen. And if he gets past Mika, that is really going to depress the Finn, who at the present moment is 24 World Championship points behind Michael Schumacher as a result of the fact that the German has already won the first 3 races of the year and taken the maximum 10 points from each of them. So Coulthard in the McLaren, Ralf Schumacher in the Williams BMW, Jenson Button in the Williams BMW, Mika Häkkinen in the McLaren Mercedes, Michael Schumacher in the Ferrari, and Heinz-Harald Frentzen down to 6th as a result of that very slow pit stop and getaway, and he is 9-10 seconds behind Michael Schumacher. We're ahead of Jacques Villeneuve, who's 7th, Jarno Trulli is 8th, Eddie Irvine 9th, Johnny Herbert 10th, both the Jaguars in the top 10. There are 18 out of the 22 starters still running. Retirements in order of retirement: Jos Verstappen arrows, Pedro de la Rosa arrows, Rubens Barrichello Ferrari, Ricardo Zonta BAR, and everybody up to 10th position, that is Johnny Herbert, has been lapped. And the Williams mechanics out in the pit lane. Now, who will that be for? Now, this, I am a bit surprised at this. Ralf Schumacher is actually catching David Coulthard. Jenson Button, running third, comes into the pit lane for his second stop and accelerates out. Now it's conceivable that Michael Schumacher will have gone up into 4th position. He's gaining place after place. Mika Häkkinen has gone up into 3rd place. Now there is Button. Can we see Michael Schumacher?
Well, that is a major surprise to me and a huge disappointment. I really thought it was clear to see, to read this race, that it was heading into a one-stopper, to be at the sharp end when it matters. And I'm just amazed with the 13 laps to go that they brought Jenson Button in. He had to come in for another stop. What a disappointment.
Well, I begin to wonder where this will leave Ralf Schumacher, because there's 14 laps to go. And he's coming in. Ralf Schumacher's coming in. There are the Williams mechanics again, so that means that Häkkinen could well move up into 2nd position, and Michael Schumacher into 3rd place.
Irvine having stalled the engine on with a box full of neutrals, I'm not sure which. A box full of neutrals by the looks of it. So Eddie Irvine going no further. That put Johnny, oh, he's found one. There he goes. Will he find some more? But Ralf coming down the pit lane, so this is going to put the Williams way back. They obviously went for a long first stint and a very short middle stint to give themselves track position. And, well, quite clearly now, it's going to compromise them badly in the run-up to the end of the race.
And is Michael Schumacher going to get through and ahead of the Williams BMW before it leaves the pit lane? Well, on the left there, you see Ralf Schumacher. Coulthard, of course, has gone through. Mika Häkkinen has gone through. There is Schumacher, and that is Jenson Button behind him. So they've both come in and rejoined the track in exactly the same positions relative to each other. We're on lap 48 now, and I'm just trying to work out in my mind where Michael Schumacher is in relation to the others in the top 6. He's in it, absolutely for sure, but Gerhard Berger looking very downcast. Well, now he's smiling as he talks to Sir Frank. But there is Michael Schumacher, where you can see where he is on the track. Michael Schumacher is in 3rd position. So what I said was going to happen has, I'm glad to say, from my point of view. So it's a McLaren leading.
At Herbert, there will be pumping up the hydraulic system. Maybe you do get a leakage on that. That's the system that closes the valves in the engine. And clearly they had some kind of leakage. They had to come in and fit. You can add that during a race. You cannot add oil and that sort of thing during a race, but you can add, I believe, compression into that system. Ralf Schumacher now out on the track on a mission, heading for a very fast lap time, but we're dying to see. I think you're right, Mario. I think it's left Michael Schumacher in 3rd place, and of course Frentzen behind him, and now the two Williams are going to top out or round out the top 6 in 5th and 6th position.
Well, so there's Häkkinen. Look, there is Michael Schumacher. He is in 3rd position as he comes up and passes Eddie Irvine in the Jaguar, who moves through to let him past. So Michael Schumacher is on 4 World Championship points in the phenomenally, so far, reliable Ferrari, having scored 10 in each of the first 3 races. It's not going to make very much difference to the gap between himself and Mika Häkkinen, because although Häkkinen is 2nd, it means to say that he will have closed the gap to Michael Schumacher by only 2 points from 24 to 22, provided they finish in 2nd and 3rd places. But Ralf Schumacher is now in 5th place behind Heinz-Harald Frentzen. Jenson Button is still in the points. That would be the second time in his first 4 Grand Prix that he's finished in the points if he stays there. But as Martin has said, great disappointment when we both thought that he was going to be in 3rd position on a one-stop strategy. Not so.
I'm still seriously impressed with Michael Schumacher. He had patience at the beginning of the race, fell back 23 seconds. Imagine if he'd have made that start stick and go around the outside of Häkkinen, so he was in the thick of it at the front all the way through. The amount of fuel he obviously had on board, he would have been in superb shape. But as James pointed out earlier in the race, it's McLaren that have really called the strategy right today, and it's working beautifully. Coulthard and Häkkinen up front. Coulthard's got a 10.9 second lead. Michael Schumacher's got a few back markers and 8.8 seconds before he can get a look at the back of Mika Häkkinen.
Who has never won a British Grand Prix, was second in 1980s, led but gone off. Last year, of course, he lost a rear wheel. He went off the year before when the race was very wet indeed. Michael Schumacher, of course, has won. He won in those contentious circumstances in 1998 when he won the race in the pit lane, stationary, as a result of having to take a penalty. But Ferrari made it work. Michael won the race. Mika Häkkinen has not won a British Grand Prix. David Coulthard has, of course. If he wins this race, it will be for the 2nd year in succession, and it's something that David really needs to beat his teammate Mika Häkkinen fair and square, because he was getting the reputation of being number 2 in the McLaren team in a situation where there's only a cigarette paper in terms of ability between him and his teammate Mika Häkkinen. Frentzen, we're now riding with 4th place.
Yes, coming into left field. Coulthard can't quite find that 10th or 2/10 to match Häkkinen on the ultimate lap, but he's always been as good, if not having an edge at some tracks in race conditions, and he certainly had an excellent afternoon as David Coulthard biding his time, making use of his strategy, and there he is, way out front at the moment. He's got a nice comfort zone. He can play his lap times to Häkkinen. He needs to keep an eye on it, because Häkkinen will come under pressure from Michael Schumacher, although actually Häkkinen is managing to maintain that 9.3 second advantage too. So Coulthard and Häkkinen looking very strong. How strong is the McLaren? It certainly showed good reliability in Imola. Mika Häkkinen had a problem this morning in the warm-up, but that seems to be the first signs that of any reliability issues. I think they may have nailed it.
Well, the race that we need to look at now is Frentzen against Ralf Schumacher, because Ralf in the Williams BMW is catching the Jordan. He was only 1.5 seconds behind him on the previous lap after his pit stop. Now we're with Frentzen again in 2nd position, and I remind you of the places. David Coulthard, we're with Frentzen in 4th position, Häkkinen is 2nd, Michael Schumacher is 3rd. Ralf Schumacher is just 1.5 seconds behind the man we are riding with as he turns into bridge.
I think Frentzen's got a problem. Frentzen came out of Abbey Chicane with a misfire. He's got some... That is Frentzen, isn't it?
Yes,
He's got a drama. Frentzen is going slowly.
You're right. Now let's look for Ralf Schumacher, because you're absolutely right, Martin. You can see from the positioning of the car and its speed on the track that he is much slower than he has been in the past. We'll see the 2 of them go across the line, I have no doubt. So he sounds all right as he accelerates away up the straight. Maybe he's missing a gear. He's
not changing gear at all. So he's just staying in the same gear, look, and he didn't change gear up the pit straight at all. Maybe he's lost hydraulic pressure too, and that also affects his throttle, which could explain why he slowed down so much.
And Martin, we've missed it, I'm afraid. Ralf Schumacher is ahead of him, and Jenson Button is catching him. There is Ralf Schumacher ahead of Frentzen. There is Frentzen in the background, and there is Jenson Button. Now Jenson Button is going to take 5th position from Heinz-Harald Frentzen. Of that, I have not a shadow of a doubt on lap 52 out of 60. What a cracking drive from Jenson. Watch him. This young man is so incredibly mature. I thought it when he's talking to you on the start line, Martin, and he's driven an absolutely superb race. Starting from the 3rd row of the grid in 6th position alongside Michael Schumacher. Here he comes, edging up on Frentzen all the time.
Yes, he'll just eat Frentzen alive in an acceleration zone somewhere. Frentzen clearly got some kind of gear shift problem, and although he's maintaining a fair lick of speed, I think if Jenson gets anywhere near him on the exit of a corner, he'll just swamp him.
And in 7th position behind Jenson Button and 12 seconds behind him, just so that you know what's happening as you watch very shortly the young Englishman taking 5th position away from Heinz-Harald Frentzen, who moves over and lets him through. He knows there's no point in resisting, and it's now Williams BMW in 4th and 5th place ahead of the Jordan Mugen Honda of Heinz-Harald Frentzen, the only Jordan in the points because Jarno Trulli is down in 8th position. That's boss of Williams' technical side, Patrick Head, and out goes Nick Heidfeld in the Prost from 15th position. Another miserable race for Prost because Lacey is only 12th.
Exit of Beckett's. There'll certainly be some double yellows there. That's quite a tricky position, but again, they should be able to recover that car quickly enough.
Well, McLaren are going to be very happy with the result of this race because they're going to finish 1st and 2nd in a situation where they haven't had a 2nd place this year, never mind a 1st, let alone 1st and 2nd, but only relatively happy because although they will have closed the gap on Ferrari in the Constructors' Championship, they're going to have 16 points compared with Ferrari's 4 points. So they'll close the gap in the Constructors' Championship by 12 points, but they're still going to be a good way behind Ferrari. And in the Vital Drivers' Championship, of course, the fact that Michael Schumacher is in 3rd position and only 2 points behind the man you're looking at now, Mika Häkkinen, is not going to make a lot of... Sorry, that's David Coulthard. Is not going to make a lot of difference. But you just have to keep fighting in Formula One. We're on lap 54 already. It doesn't mean to say that things are going to stay this way for the rest of the race. Coulthard leads. Häkkinen is going faster and faster. He's just made his fastest lap of the race. Schumacher is 3rd, Michael. Ralf Schumacher is 4th. Jenson Button is in 5th place. Heinz-Harald Frentzen is 6th. Now the question now is Heinz-Harald Frentzen going to be able to maintain 6th position and 1 point? Because Jacques Villeneuve is eating into his lead at something like 4 seconds a lap, and he's just 8 seconds behind him. So in a couple of laps' time, Frentzen is likely to be out of the points.
And that's Frentzen cruising, waving at the crowd. His race is over. Any hydraulic pressure he had left in that system to work the throttle and the gears is finally over. Frentzen is finally dropping out of this Grand Prix. No change at the front. Coulthard, Häkkinen and Michael Schumacher, but Häkkinen taking a full 1.7 seconds out of Coulthard on the previous lap. The gap now down to 7.3. Easily enough time at that rate to catch him. I can only assume that Coulthard must have been told by the team, Mika will not attack you. There's Frentzen recovering to the pit lane. I'm sure that's going to be hydraulic pressure, but surely they won't let Häkkinen try and apply pressure to Coulthard when they've got 11 seconds advantage over Michael Schumacher in 3rd place. Frentzen driving straight into the garage.
If they do, there will be an absolute uproar outside Formula One, because remember what happened in Australia when David Coulthard moved over the year before last and let Mika Häkkinen through at the end of the race to win it. I cannot believe that that would be allowed to happen here. Well, I can actually, but I don't want to.
No, I can't believe it would happen. I know one person who wouldn't let it happen, and I know another person who would never ask for it to happen again either. So, you know, maybe they'll let them race, but I think Coulthard should have the pace to, with 4 laps remaining, 4 and a bit laps remaining, to keep Häkkinen under control. But he certainly won't be happy about having that kind of pressure applied to him by his teammate when they're in a 1-2 position. I'm expecting Häkkinen to cruise up behind him and then come home in a formation finish. Louise, what can you tell us?
Well, I'll try and get it from the horse's mouth, actually, Martin. I'm standing here with Heinz-Harald. Heinz-Harald, what was your problem?
I think that's the same problem like in Imola. Stuck again in 6th gear. We had a problem with with the gearbox software. Well, a mechanical piece was actually causing a problem. So that's it.
And tell us about your tactics. You decided to go for a two-stop. Was that the right way to go?
We would have finished, probably, yes. But it would have been difficult anyway to keep up with McLaren and the Ferrari. So we had to drive a very aggressive race. I couldn't get past Barrichello at the beginning. It is impossible here in Silverstone really to have overtaking. This is the main thing. So the race has to be made in the pits.
Thanks, Hans-Harald.
Lap 57, and you're looking at the battle now between Jacques Villeneuve, who's 6th, and Jarno Trulli in the other Jordan. So Frenzen's just retired and lost the chance of a point for himself. Jarno Trulli wants the team at least to have a point, and to do that he's got to get past Jacques Villeneuve that is leading him. And we're on lap 57.
Yes, and Villeneuve locking a front and then snaking the rear out of the Abbey chicane. Mika Häkkinen absolutely flying on a 1:26.2. The gap now just, oh look, Trulli goes through. Trulli makes a move into Priory. Villeneuve, I think, with some kind of braking problem. We saw him struggling into the Abbey chicane before. Trulli going into that point scoring position. But James, what can you tell us?
Well, Häkkinen's got one idea. His McLaren team have got quite another. They're just about to show him a pit board saying easy. He's going far too quickly for their liking. It would appear that Ron Dennis has it in mind for them to finish 1-2 today with Coulthard first and Häkkinen second. But, well, we'll see what Häkkinen has in mind.
Well, the alternative scenario is that David Coulthard has a problem, and I don't believe from his lap times that he has. He's just done a lap in 1:27.3 compared with the fastest lap that we've had, 26.2, but that was a long time ago. Now we're on lap 58, only 2 to go at the end of this one, and you're looking at race leader David Coulthard, the man who won the British Grand Prix last year. He's leading Mika Häkkinen by about 3.5 seconds. He's leading Michael Schumacher, who is 3rd, by 20 seconds. Ralf Schumacher, who is 4th, by 37 seconds. Button, who is 5th, by 50 seconds. And Jarno Trulli in the Jordan is moved up to 6th position as you look at the two McLarens together, and Villeneuve retires, having been in the points until he did so. But Mika Häkkinen, you can visually see now, is closing right up on David Coulthard. Now we're going to see, is it going to be a formation drive for the last 2 laps of the race? Or is, I cannot believe that Mika Häkkinen is going to disobey team orders, if there are any. But it's getting mighty, mighty close now, coming to the end of lap 58 out of 60.
Well, Coulthard's got only one choice if Häkkinen tries to come alongside him, is run him off the road, hasn't he, really? I mean, easy look on Häkkinen's board. Coulthard's doing what he should be doing and coasting, conserving the car to the end of the race. They're now 16.7 seconds ahead of Michael Schumacher. No need to push the cars, and no wonder they're giving Häkkinen that easy board.
Well, I have said in the past this year that McLaren lost the first 3 races rather than Ferrari winning them. McLaren undoubtedly had a quicker car. Mika Häkkinen led all the races. He was denied victory in the first 2 by mechanical problems. It's certainly proving that they've got the quicker car here in terms of race distance, because remember, Rubens Barrichello may have been ahead, but he was only just ahead. And to finish first you have to finish. He hasn't done so. We're on lap 59 now. Only 1 to go at the end of it. It is going to be a McLaren showpiece finish, but Michael Schumacher is holding the flag and waving it hard for Ferrari. 3rd position ahead of his brother Button and Trulli.
Still 4.5 miles though, Murray, for those 2 McLarens, and as we know, anything can happen towards the end of a Grand Prix as everything is stressed and stretched. So many parts of these cars are just thrown away. They're designed to complete a Grand Prix. They've put on fresh and new this morning, having been tested on the bench somewhere, maybe even run for a few kilometres in a car. But, you know, the cars are designed to finish not much more than a Grand Prix. But now I think Häkkinen will steady his pace. I'm sure he was just trying to frighten Coulthard off the road if he had half a chance. I don't think he'll be making any kind of attack.
And Michael Schumacher is attacking. He's just gone through the first sector fastest of all. He is, after all, those 20 seconds behind Coulthard. I won't say I can't see the point of it, but he's obviously hoping for something dramatic to happen. There he is. It's a terrific lap that he's doing, but just under 2 seconds between the first 2, and they are now on their last their 60th and last lap. A comeback by McLaren with the prospect of first place for David Coulthard for the second year in succession. A second place for Mika Häkkinen, as he had at Imola for the San Marino Grand Prix. They're coming up behind Giancarlo Fisichella, who is 7th.
Textbook drive here from David Coulthard, kept his nose clean in the early stages, knew he was carrying a lot of fuel, of course. The McLaren people, I think, really did get the strategy spot on. Ferrari put a good strategy into Michael Schumacher, but a very, very good one from his 5th position on the grid. But he got shoveled out at the start, and it's cost him dearly. That's allowed these two McLarens really to get out front. Both Jordan and Williams looked absolutely superb, but they were deceiving us because they were running less fuel. Unlike we thought they could all get to the end of the race with the exception of Frentzen, but it turned out the Williams had to stop too. But it still leaves Jenson Button in a solid and excellent 5th position, and his teammate Ralf Schumacher now 16 seconds ahead of him. Jenson fading a little bit towards the end now, but in 4th position. Brother Michael in 3rd. Häkkinen now pegged it over the line.
Goes David Coulthard wins the British Grand Prix by just 1.4 seconds from Mika Häkkinen. A McLaren 1-2, a maximum 16 points in the Constructors' Championship, but there remains the fly in the ointment as far as McLaren is concerned, and it's a mighty big fly. Michael Schumacher, 3rd for Ferrari after a brilliant drive, starting with a very, very heavy fuel load. His brother Ralf Schumacher in the Williams BMW comes home in 4th position, and behind him, 16 seconds behind him, is Jenson Button, hopefully, from his point of view and Brittain's point of view. So the two Schumachers are home. Is it going to be both Williams BMWs in the points yet again? Well, there is Jenson Button, and he's going to finish higher than he's finished before, and we thought a 6th place was absolutely fantastic in Brazil, but it's 5th for Jenson Button, a magnificent drive. Jarno Trulli is 20 seconds behind him. There he is in 6th position. So 2 McLarens at the front, a Ferrari, 2 Williams BMWs, 1 Jordan, and Fisichella has finished 7th because he has been lapped. Salo 8th, Wurz 9th, Jean Alesi in 10th position. 15 finishers out of the 22 that started.
Yes, and Herbert and Irvine in the Jaguars down in 12th and 13th place. Heidi, David's fiancée, and well, what a great drive. And that's answered a lot of critics for Coulthard. He's taken some stick. Even after the first race, they were saying Coulthard will be bundled out of the McLaren at the end of the year. Quite on what basis, I don't know, and I couldn't find anybody that did, but a lot of speculation and kept fueling the fire, and now David Coulthard has answered that superbly with a clear-cut win, dominant win, and especially over his teammate Häkkinen.
And a dominant win which moves him up into 2nd place in the World Championship. 20 points behind Michael Schumacher, but importantly from his point of view, 2 points ahead of Mika Häkkinen, who is 3rd. Ralf Schumacher 4th in the World Championship. Jarno Trulli 5th. Jenson Button is now 6th in the World Championship on 3 points. And in the Constructors' Championship, Ferrari are still a country mile ahead of McLaren, 43 points to 26. Williams in 3rd position, with Jordan and Benetton tying for 4th position, ahead of BAR 6th on 6 points.
And the crowd on their feet as Coulthard comes back to the Parc Fermé. Arm aloft, he's pretty pleased with himself. He'll sleep well tonight. He's got a party going on at his motorhome later on. There's going to be wicked and wild, and he'll be in just the right mood, won't he?
Well, that's his 7th World Championship win, his 2nd win of the British Grand Prix, and last year he said, this is the one I wanted to win above all others. And he's not a demonstrative chap, David. He's a quite shy chap in many ways, but you can see how happy he is there, and hopefully he'll give us a big smile on the podium. Into Parc Fermé, Michael Schumacher gets out of the Ferrari, arm aloft, David out of the McLaren.
Well, all that fitness training's been doing, and I mean, the guy's arms look like his legs. He's so strong and so fit, and it pays off on a tough race like this afternoon. And Coulthard will be, as you said, he's not extremely demonstrative. He won't be doing the old Michael Schumacher punching the fresh air up on the podium, but I can tell you he'll be just as happy.
That was Norbert Haug. Well, there he is, you see. Norbert congratulating fellow German Michael Schumacher. Norbert is the boss of the Mercedes-Benz competition department. Mighty relieved man. Another fellow German there, Ralf Schumacher. And that, I remind you, was McLaren and Mercedes' first win of the year. Not only a win, but a maximum first and second, 16 points. Norbert congratulates Ralf, and Ralf Schumacher can be mighty pleased. He was third in Brazil. He was fifth in, he was third in Australia, fifth in Brazil, and now he's finished in fourth position here.
There's a lovely moment earlier in the race when Ralf put a move on Michael on the first lap to take his position away. But it's a question, I think, of damage limitation today for Michael. That mid-race sprint he did. I mean, amazing for him to end up in such a solid third position there, 21 seconds ahead of his brother in the end. You can see there now, and in fact they're showing at 19.9 on there. I'm 21 behind the leader that was. So Michael Schumacher then, solid run, damage limitation keeps him in touch in terms of points and well in front in the championship.
Well, David Coulthard would have to win 2 races with Michael Schumacher not finishing in the points in either of them to equal the German's World Championship points position, and that would be after 6 races if he won the next 2. Not a very likely scenario. Everything is possible in Formula One, but we've got the prospect of this World Championship fight between McLaren, Ferrari, Coulthard and Schumacher carrying on. David probably talking to his father, I guess.
Just what I was going to say. That's going to be his dad. He's on the phone too.
Duncan, his dad, up at Twynham in Scotland, who's done so much to help David become a racing driver and make his way through the various categories of karts and Formula Ford, Formula 3, where he was second in the championship, and won so brilliantly in many other categories and up into 3,000.
And most of those early days funded by his dad and anybody he could blag into spending some money. David used to do his homework in the motorhome as they travelled down from Scotland for a 10-lap Formula Ford thrash, and they get back at 5 o'clock in the morning. It's Heidi again, 5 o'clock in the morning, and he'd have to just have a shower and go straight off to school again. That's the kind of commitment you've got to have if you want to be standing, as David will any moment now, on the top step of the podium here at the British Grand Prix.
And what a wonderful thing it is that he's going to receive his trophy from the great Ken Tyrrell, who you can see standing on the left, the man who had the most successful private Formula One team in the history of the sport. A great man who is currently the president of the British Racing Drivers Club, who own and operate Silverstone, where they are obviously hoping the British Grand Prix will continue in future years. Ken Tyrrell then going to give that trophy to David Coulthard, and the Constructors' Trophy will be handed. It's going to be interesting to see who receives the Constructors' Trophy. I guess it'll be Ron Dennis. Here's David. Ken smiling in the background. Well done, David. Michael Schumacher joins him on the podium. Where is Mika Häkkinen? There he is. McLaren, Mercedes, first and second. Ferrari third. McLaren are well and truly back as the national anthem sounds for them and for David. Great day for Britain. Scotland's David Coulthard wins the race. England's McLaren finish first and second. And the magnificent gold trophy, which you saw Jim Rosenthal sitting alongside when this programme began, is now in the hands of David Coulthard. And Norbert Haug is the man who's taken the Constructors' Trophy, because Mercedes-Benz are such an integral part of the whole McLaren operation. They powered Coulthard to victory, Häkkinen to second place. And Mika Häkkinen takes his trophy from Peter Hain, who is the Minister of State and a very keen, I can tell you, Formula One enthusiast. John Quemby, the Chief Executive of the British Motorsports Association, gives Michael Schumacher his trophy. McLaren, Ferrari. The story has not changed here at Silverstone, but the order has, as the champagne is victoriously sprayed. Well, enjoy it, David. You have deserved every drop of it. And I suppose if you're soaked in champagne, it's a lovely feeling if you're being soaked in champagne, because you've done what Mercedes-Benz, McLaren, Coulthard, Häkkinen, and of course, Michael Schumacher have done here at Silverstone. We had a pretty unpleasant run-up to today in the form of weather. Sadly, I suspect a lot of people will not have succeeded in getting in. They've missed a great race. The banked, serried ranks of spectators that you saw just there have enjoyed every second of it. Now they will be making their way home saying, Silverstone 2000, I was there.